Okay, thank you very much for that introduction and welcome everyone to my presentation entitled Is Implementing a Biotech Ban Correct or Not? Analysis of Farmer Perceptions and Attitudes on the Philippine Supreme Court's Ban on Biotech Crops. So first things first, this is my presentation outline where I will begin with my background and rationale, the objectives, the conceptual framework, research locale, sampling method, data collection and analysis procedure, the highlights of our R&D, and the conclusions. So first things first, what is biotech corn? So some of you may still be unfamiliar with this crop. So actually, the Philippines is the first country to plant a biotech crop in Southeast Asia when it approved the commercial propagation of biotech corn in December 2002. Now, biotech corn is resistant to the Asiatic corn borer, or the Ostrinia fornicalis, which is one of the most damaging corn pests in the Philippines. And as we can see here in this photo, the yellow corn was damaged by this pest, the Asiatic corn borer, whereas the biotech corn remained safe. Now, some more information regarding biotech farming in the Philippines. So the Philippines currently ranks 12th worldwide in the list of biotech mega countries with 0.9 million hectares of biotech corn. And several papers and reports have reported that farmers experienced yield and income gains due to reduction in insecticide use. And then a recent report by Alvarez in 2021, they reported that the total factor productivity growth in the Philippines corn industry was around 11.45% higher because of biotech corn adoption. And not only that, so last July 2021, the Philippines also approved golden rice and BT eggplant for food, feed, and processing. Now, given all of those benefits that I have mentioned earlier, the Supreme Court in the Philippines decided to ban the propagation, the commercialization, and importation of genetically modified products in the Philippines. That was way back in December 2015. Now, there was a strong appeal from the scientific community to reverse the ban. So scientists and scientific organizations argued that the ban was not based on scientific facts. And with that, not even a year after its implementation, the Supreme Court reversed their decision and approved the planting of biotech crops and the development of GM products again in the Philippines. However, agricultural biotechnology and GM products have been placed in the limelight for quite a long period of time, and they have been exposed to various public misconceptions. So this one is a good example, a publication by De Leon in 2019. So they said that for 16 weeks, various media companies monitored the debates that sparked from this issue, which is in contrast with the usual low media coverage being given to science-related news. And furthermore, it is imperative to understand the perceptions, the attitudes of the biotech farmers towards this issue, since they are the number one stakeholders of agri-biotech who will be heavily affected if this nationwide ban persisted. And this is what our paper mainly tried to address. So in our objectives, our primary goal is to examine the farmers' perceptions and attitudes towards the biotech ban and discuss whether its implementation is correct or not based on the farmers' perspectives. Do take note that the farmers are treated as consumers or adopters in this study, and the specific technology considered is biotech farming. Furthermore, we did not measure the actual behavior of the farmers, but we focused more on their decision-making. And because of that, for our framework, we utilized this consumer decision model, which is one of the most common decision-making models being used in decision-making studies. So let me just introduce this briefly. So in this model, we can see that this one, we have the stimuli. And the assumption of this model is that each of us, all of us are consumers or adopters on a daily basis, right? And we are being exposed to various stimuli around us, and this can be marketer or non-marketer dominated. Now, if this information is relevant to our needs and wants as a consumer, then it would trigger the decision-making stages. So it would start with the need recognition stage, the search stage, up to the divestment stage. Now, in this study, the term consumption, so in our paper, it means adoption of a farming technology. And in this case, we are talking about their continuous adoption of biotech corn. And then another assumption of this model is that we have these influential factors or like farming decision-making variables, and they can be external or internal. And it is assumed that each of these are influencing each of these decision-making stages. And because of that, what we did is to further subcontextualize each of these into our study. In total, we have around 23 influential factors, and we also subcontextualized each of these decision-making stages. And do take note that each of these factors are inside a person's memory. Now, we further transform that into a more simplified version, and this is what it looks like. So now we can see that the influential factors are inside a person's memory, and we have the environmental and the individual factors. And then for the decision-making stages, so we can see that for the need recognition stage, so this refers to the desirability to plant alternative types of crops. So because in the consumer decision model, Blackwell, they're saying that when this stage is triggered, so a person will have two states. So their current state and an alternative state, which was caused by the stimuli. So in this case, so the current state of the farmers is their biotech farming, and the alternative state is non-biotech adoption, which was being caused by the ban. And as you can see here, we also transformed the other stages. And for the adoption stage, we are mainly referring to their desire to continue planting biotech corn. So we have further expanded this in our paper. Now, for the locales, so we have conducted this in the province of Pampanga, where biotech corn farming was first introduced in 2003. And Magalang, Arayat, and Mexico are top producers of biotech corn. Now, in terms of the sampling method, so we have utilized the respondent-driven sampling. And in the selection of biotech farmers in the study, the initial referrer was ascribed to the provincial agriculturist, followed by the wave 1 referrers, which are the municipal agriculturists, the wave 2 referrers as the agricultural technicians, and the wave 3 referrers as the farmer leaders. Now, the high level of authority and influence of the provincial and municipal agriculturists are big factors in locating the target respondents of the study. Now, for the data collection and analysis, so we conducted a cross-sectional survey on the top 3 biotech corn producing municipalities in Pampanga province, and we used a standardized questionnaire through face-to-face interviews. And the questionnaire was designed to fit the consumer decision model of Blackwell. Each of the decision-making stages, the influential factors, and the band perception have a corresponding Likert scale to measure farmers' response. And for the data analysis, so initial relatedness between variables was determined using Spearman's correlation, and ordinal logistic regression, correspondence analysis, and factor analysis were also conducted using SPSS. So for the results, first things first, we asked the farmers, was implementing the ban a correct decision or not? Because that is the main goal of the study, right? Now, as you can see here, there is a bifurcation in terms of the farmers' perceived correctness of the ban. Around 46%, or 51 out of 111 farmers, said that implementing the ban was an incorrect decision. Meanwhile, around 35% indicated that implementing the ban was a correct decision, and 19% stayed neutral. So, what are the common themes that surfaced? So, when we conducted our analysis on all of their qualitative answers in our interviews, on one side, we have farmers who answered that the ban was incorrect. So, these are the farmers who are seeking evidence from the government first before they believe and adhere to the ban because they have been planting biotech corn for more than a decade. And these farmers said that they have not seen or felt any negative effects towards their health and their environment. Furthermore, farmers said that planting biotech corn is their number one source of income, from which they have reaped higher yields than the white corn they have been planting previously. So, stripping the crop from them would entail negative consequences to their lives and communities. And lastly, they said that planting biotech corn is less laborious and has significantly reduced pesticide application. On the other hand, we have farmers who answered that the ban was correct. So these are the farmers who are expressing their desire to follow the law and they trust in the government's decision. They believe that the government has done the necessary research and legal procedures before implementing the ban. However, a lot of farmers are still expressing their appeal to government leaders for an alternative crop that can match the high standard set by biotech corn in their province. Now, we have analyzed this even more using the elaboration likelihood model. And here we can see that this bifurcation can be explained by bottom-up thinkers and top-down thinkers. So for the bottom-up thinkers, these are people who adhere with their past experiences, satisfaction, and beliefs. And they are people who ascribe lower priority towards first impressions or suggestions from other information sources. So they exhibit bottom-up thinking or objective elaboration, which rationalize external and internal inputs, such as the knowledge of the ban. And these are the people who will indicate that the ban is incorrect. Meanwhile, we have the top-down thinkers, and they value the credible sources. So they prioritize the inputs from these credible sources, such as the government, over other factors. And according to Griffin, so they exhibit top-down thinking or biased elaboration. And these are the people who will indicate that the ban is correct. So in our paper, we have also explained this in detail. Okay, so now let's look at the relationship of the decision-making stages with the ban perception. So here we conducted a Spearman correlation for each of the decision-making stages and their perceived correctness of the ban. And as we can see here, almost all of the stages have a relationship with the ban perception, except for the level of familiarity and knowledge of biotech and non-biotech crops. So looking at this first stage, so biotech corn farmers' desirability to plant alternative crops is directly related with their ban perception. So this means that farmers who have expressed higher desire to try planting non-biotech crops perceive the ban as being a correct policy implementation. Meanwhile, those who expressed low levels of desire to try planting non-biotech crops perceive the ban as an incorrect policy. And we have further conducted analysis on this matter, wherein we did this correspondence analysis between the farmers' perceived correctness of the ban and their desire to continue biotech corn adoption. So again, it's showing similar trends. So farmers who perceive the ban as incorrect would continue their adoption. Meanwhile, farmers who perceive the ban as correct were unsure whether they would continue their adoption or not. Moving forward, so we have created this heat diagram coming from the same table that I have shown you earlier. So This makes it more simple to visualize. So we can see that this one, so it corresponds to the red side. So that's why the heat diagram. So this one means there's a positive relationship. Meanwhile, this one going to the green side, it has a negative relationship. So we have seen that 4 decision-making stages were found to have an inverse relationship with the farmer's ban perception. This indicates that the farmer's level of benefit and satisfaction towards biotech corn is the primary driver of their perception towards a restrictive ban that have the potential to affect their livelihood. So such dispositional behavioral factors affecting adoption of agricultural policies have been reported in previous studies. Now, since we have mentioned that satisfaction in planting biotech corn is one of the main drivers, right, for their decision-making process, we have also created this simple figure to show the perceived incentives of biotech corn adoption. So this is also based on all of the interviews that we have conducted with the farmers. So first things first, we have pest resistance. So many farmers are saying that with biotech corn, so just like in the photo that you have seen earlier, biotech corn is remaining to be safe, whereas the yellow corn is being damaged by the pest, the number one pest of corn, right? And because of this pest resistance, this yields to more yield. So yield security, which also translates to more income for the farmers. And many reports have already indicated this, and even the total factor productivity growth of the corn industry in the Philippines also increased because of biotech corn adoption. And another thing is that it reduces the labor of the farmers because there's already a significant reduction in pesticide application. And the main output of this is the improvement in the farmer's state of living. So again, in our paper, we have also discussed each of these in detail. Now let's move forward to the relationship of the influential factors with the ban perception. So for the internal factors, when we ran a regression to determine which among all of these influential factors have a relationship with the farmer's perceived correctness of the ban, we can see that capital, knowledge about the requirements needed to plant biotech corn, attitude towards the negative effects of biotech corn on the environment and health, and satisfaction in planting biotech corn and usage of income from biotech corn. These are the factors that emerge to have a significant relationship with the farmer's perceived correctness of the ban. And Carali in 2014 reported that individual farmer profile characteristics have indeed been identified to affect farmer participation in agricultural policies. Now, in terms of external factors, there are 3 that emerged, and these are personal information regarding planting and purchasing biotech corn seeds, to support the family in planting biotech corn, and the perception or opinion of family regarding biotech corn. And these external factors agree with previous studies on farmer participation towards agricultural policies. So now this is a summative heat diagram showing which factors have a positive or negative relationship with the farmer's perceived correctness of the ban, as well as the decision-making stages that I have discussed earlier. So we can see here that biotech corn farmers have significant influences from their decision-making process, internal factors of income and product satisfaction, and external factors of family. Now for the conclusion. As the prime stakeholders for the agribiotech industry, farmers' perspectives remain to be a viable source of information regarding policy changes and strategies, market situation, and societal impacts. Had the 2015 Philippine Supreme Court ban on biotech crops persisted, severe impacts on farmers' quality of life and income is anticipated, and thereby prompts research initiatives targeting key interactions among factors affecting farmer perspectives and decision making. Now, based on the table that you have seen earlier, we have seen that while farmers' perspectives at the initial stage of decision making or their need recognition stage appears to separate the farmers into two distinct groups, which is the bifurcation that we have seen, the succeeding decision making stages show otherwise. So this hints at the resistive behavior among biotech corn farmers towards restrictive policies, more specifically towards the Supreme Court's ban on biotech crops. So this also confirms the pragmatic nature of the farmers as previously described in our paper, which we have also published in the Journal of Rural Studies. This, therefore, prompts attention from policymakers and local government units who develop and improve on agricultural policies regarding biotech crops, since the observed behavior among farmers may incite disagreements between stakeholders. And so, better consultation and communication between farmers and policymakers should be carried out in the future for policy framing and implementation of biotech crops. So these are my references, and thank you very much for listening. And I would also want to take this chance to say that currently I am a PhD candidate and I will be graduating soon. So I am currently doing my job hunting. So if you know any office that I could apply to, I would be very happy to apply. So thank you very much. This is my website, and this is also the QR code of my website. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your insights on this topic, very important topic. And thanks a lot for your participation. Here it stays recorded. Have a great day, Clarice.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.